Welcome back, everyone, to the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk podcast. This is your United show. This is Devil's Advocate. It's a very strange day. We're previewing a game on a Tuesday. We have a game on a Thursday. Now, I think for many United fans, that's going to be a regular thing this season. We're not usually used to it, but this is something that will become a regular thing. So we're here today not to talk Europa League. We're here today to talk Premier League. Manchester United versus Leicester. Big game for both teams. So we'll be discussing, obviously, Thursday's game. We're also going to chat about Brendan Rodgers' future as Leicester manager. So that's a hot talking point at the moment. And we will talk about the signing of Anthony as well as other topics as well. So do get your questions in for both my guests here this evening. So I am joined by Shaun Connolly from Stretty News and also joined by Brad from Leicester Till I Die podcast as well. So we have two very good lads on here today to talk about Manchester United and Leicester City as well. So do get your questions in for the lads. First of all, Shaun, I'll come to you first. 2 weeks ago when we were on the podcast, we were chatting about being a bit more positive. We're looking for a kind of bit of positivity to come about the season. Obviously, on the back of two defeats, we were a bit optimistic that we get something out of Liverpool, but we couldn't have imagined that we would have got 3 points. How are you feeling since that the last time we spoke?
Oh, well, I suppose it's night and day, really. I mean, when we spoke last, it was, I suppose we were more so anticipating a good performance and whatever could come with it. But it's night and day. The team is incomparable to what we saw in the opening 2 games of the season. We have structure. We have signs that the manager's philosophy is already taking shape on the field. And we have 6 points from 6. We can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, I think the first 2 games, albeit bad results, I think we probably needed that wake-up call. Obviously on the back of last season as well, we kind of needed to kind of knuckle down, and we needed that kind of, I suppose, experience to try Spurs on to pastures new. So hopefully them first 2 games are in the past, and that obviously the Liverpool and Southampton win especially can be a springboard now to more consistency during the season, because truth be told, we haven't had a lot of it since probably before Christmas last year. So hopefully it's something that can be a bit more positive. Brad, we haven't talked in nearly a year, I'd say, since the last time we were talking about United against Leicester. And around the time, we were actually both experiencing mixed fortunes as well around the time. And I know we were talking, I remember it was just around the time Solskjaer was kind of earmarked that kind of his future was in doubt at the time. And we were kind of talking about would Rodgers come in to replace him. We were talking about many different things. Obviously, fast forward 12 months, we're now at a stage where Leicester are at a point where Brendan Rodgers is under pressure at the football club. Kind of, how have you been feeling since kind of the last time we spoke in terms of the progression of your football club?
It's not obviously going well in terms of how we've started the season. That's an understatement to say the least. In terms of in the last 12 months, it's gone a bit free fall at Leicester. There's obviously the whole scenario regarding that absolute half rat, half snake flop Farner. The way he's treated us in handling the move to Chelsea, that hasn't helped things. I have to admit, I was one of them that was leaning on the fact that he never had a full squad available last season, and if you look at it, 8th place was actually quite respectable to do given the amount of crisis he had in terms of injury. But I did kind of give up with Brendan's stubbornness this season, and I'm kind of thinking his time's going to run out. But there has been a lot of behind the scenes stories brought to light recently by Rob Tanner and journalists like that. Journalists that really work with the club, so they've got a bit more fruition in what they're saying. You've got a bit more trust in what they're actually saying, and if you read their articles and that on websites, maybe people are being a bit harsh on Brendan at the moment, but he is rightly under pressure, because at the end of the day we have 1 point from opening 4 games, which, despite having a few difficult oppositions, this is not ideal at all to be starting the season, and we need to get it going. Otherwise, it won't matter what sympathy you have for him; he'll be gone.
And Shaun, I kind of want to bring in kind of what Brad said there. Obviously, Leicester, last season, they did finish 8th. they kind of had a bit of a stop-start season, but they kind of finished it, grand in the way they finished 8th, considering, as Brad said, he didn't have a full squad for most of the season. What do you make of, from the outside looking in, what do you make of Leicester's start this season compared to previous seasons? Because they did challenge for top 4 previously, and Leicester were one of the ones that people were saying that may break into the top 6 permanently, considering their good investment, winning the club, and I suppose the good football that they've played in kind of the last 3 or 4 years.
Well, I suppose from the outside looking in, obviously they've not started well. It's been a dismal start, I think, in terms of form and how they're actually carrying themselves on the field. They're about as bad as it comes. I mean, it's obviously hard to pit Bournemouth for that particular one, but it's been very underwhelming from what I've seen. I know it was touched upon about behind the scenes issues that are occurring, but there absolutely has to be something there. I mean, the fulcrum of what is going on at the club, obviously with Fofana and Chelsea, and obviously Kasper Schmeichel moving on and seeing pastures new, there's still the fulcrum of what has been a very entertaining, attacking, fluid football team over the last 3 or 4 years. You've got players like your Maddison, Aoe, Perez. I mean, Vardy is still there, even though I know he's not getting any younger. You got Dewsbury Hall and all those players coming through. But I think there's something ticking behind the scenes that is, there's a lot of unrest there, I would think. I mean, I'm only making an assumption because I'm not reporting on Leicester on a daily basis. I'm not looking into what's happening. But certainly from my perspective looking out, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look like a happy football club. There's discontent, obviously, in the stands. You can hear it in our guest voice here in terms of the way various different transfer deals are going on. Nothing seems clear cut. And even when you're looking at the game the last day against Chelsea, you're talking about a side that went down to 10 men very early on. And I know Chelsea Football Club are obviously prestigious in modern football, but they're not looking great at the moment either. They're a side that are lacking a bit of cutting edge as well. And even with 10 men, 2-1 kind of flattered Leicester. So I don't know. I think it's if you're a Leicester supporter, it's very disconcerting at the moment, given the amount of issues that appear to be happening off the field, but the lack of passion that seems to be happening on the field. It's a tough one to follow, and ultimately, I think it's about as good a time as we could be facing them.
I think, like, if you look at previous seasons when we have faced them, it's like going to the King Power. I think we wouldn't be as confident as we are right now, considering like where Leicester are at the moment. You look at the last couple of games that they haven't picked up points, and I think you're absolutely right. Compared to previous seasons, it looks like they are in free fall. And like, I think, look, it's not easy when you lose players like Fofana, Kasper Schmeichel. I think is a massive loss in that dressing room. You don't talk about characters. He's a massive character. He's a brilliant character, brilliant goalkeeper as well. And look, you look at players like Johnny Evans in there, decent characters. Like, they're probably all not playing their best at the moment. And I think I don't know how Leicester put out this hole. Maybe do they need a fresh manager, a new manager bounce? Maybe do they need that kind of, maybe for these players to find an extra gear? Maybe they do need that. But from the outside looking in, from my perspective, I look at Leicester. I think they're always a team who will definitely, like, in my eyes, will break into the top 10 in the league, because they have brilliant footballers, like you mentioned, Shaun. They have Maddison, Tielemans, Ndidi, Soyuncu, James Justin, brilliant players. A couple of them probably would get into our team, in terms of our midfield and our defence. So when you look at some of these players and you look at the current performances, it's eye opening. Considering I suppose the good reputation that Leicester have set for themselves, and I suppose the good standard that they've set in the last kind of 4 or 5 years.
Well, if you look at it, I mean, when I think Leicester, I know it's funny, but every single time I think Leicester, I always think 2014, and I think about that game under Van Gaal, and it just has always stuck with me. For all the games, I don't know why, but it has always stuck with me when we gave away 3-1 lead and we got absolutely taken to the cleaners. I'll never forget it. But then from that 2014, I'm pretty sure we went undefeated against Leicester until, I'm going to say, 2020. Now, we haven't beaten Leicester in our last 5 games. Now, that includes a cup game, but we haven't beaten Leicester in the league in our last 4 Premier League outings. That's home and away. So this is a side that have cultivated an ethos where they're not afraid to take on the quote-unquote bigger sides. They relish these opportunities. Players like Maddison, they they get up for that. Yuri Tillmans especially, and we saw that last year. Like he really gets up against us. But something is wrong there. They're not a happy dressing room. And what you touched on, Kasper Schmeichel, is perfect because he is a very, very good goalkeeper. I'm never going to say he's an elite keeper in terms of that, but he's an exceptionally good goalkeeper. But what he brings to that dressing room, I can imagine, was fantastic. And the fact that he's gone and has been replaced by a goalkeeper, with the best of respect to him, has represented his country over 20 times. He's got less than a dozen senior top-tier professional games, and he's just instilled with taking over from a guy who probably had ruled the roost in that dressing room.
And Brad, like the loss of Kasper Schmeichel, do you think, like, because we've seen captains come out of big dressing rooms before, Chelsea losing Terry, United losing Roy Keane, City losing Company, all these different teams during like a rebuilding process, they've lost big characters, and like we've seen at times them dressing rooms struggled. Do you think like Kasper leaving the dressing room could be a huge factor maybe for some of the players maybe not having the best performances and potentially down in tools at this stage of the season?
There's certainly only the obvious name that's down in tools. But I understand why for an outside in it looks as bad as it seems because of where we are in the league. But look, you're always going to miss a character like Schmeichel in the dressing room, whether they're a club captain or not. You'll always have a player of his standard that you call a dressing room captain. We kind of, for the 2019, 20, 2021, 2022 season, and season and a half of that, that's why we kept the likes of Wes Morgan around. That's why we kept players like him on the books for an extra year. Maybe it's a pay cut. Not that's the point. But the point is, we're willing to sign up for 12 months. Be that emergency, but be that voice in the dressing room. Any team naturally is going to do that. But and a lot of Leicester fans will tell you they were very happy with allowing Schmeichel to play out his career. At the end of the day, we was going to offer him a 1-year deal. Nice offered him a 3-year deal. We'd be stupid to let him not take that. He's going to want to take that and be a number one for potentially 3 years. Danny Ward, like you mentioned, is an international, regardless of what you think of the country he's an international at. He's wanting to play he's wanted to play first team football, and he's earned that opportunity. He's been very patient behind Kasper, and people just need to be patient with Ward because Kasper wasn't brilliant in the first season for us, and I know that was at the Championship, but that wasn't his brilliant season, and people have to be ready to allow for that mistake, like the Arsenal thing, by gets these games on, because you're right. He's not even had 6 games or 12. He's not even had 6 games in the Premiership yet. So, got to be prepared for that. But there is already things that he does better that Kasper didn't. His distribution, his command of the box from a set piece. You're never going to reach his athleticism, but you've got to make do with Ward because he is still a really good keeper. And I reckon in a couple of seasons' time, he'll be up there with a quality of standard. The problem is, with Fofana, I just want to slightly correct the idea that the whole dressing room is at rest. The issue, first of all, with the way Leicester are going about losing results is in the first 3 games, Leicester, and this is what I mean by why I think Brendan's stubbornness is going to cost him his job in the short term. I have been voicing this concern for a while, and that is he wants Leicester to play their best football, get in a lead, and then see it out. And that doesn't seem to matter if it's the 30th minute, like it was against Brentford, or if it's the 60th minute, like it was when we took the lead against Southampton. He wants them to Leicester just to slow it down, settle in, shore up the game, see it out 1 or 2-0. Pinching another goal would be brilliant. The problem is that creates a lot of pressure, and we don't. And this is the difference between what you class as a quality side and a very good side. A very good side might have versatile players in terms of the positions they can play, or across that midfield, across the defence, etc. But a very good side can adapt from an attacking side, counter press, which is what we're really good at, and can also switch up to the defensive side. Our entire squad might have the odd individual of class, like a Tillemans and a rat snake in Fofana, but we're not, as a collective unit, we can't play the defensive football game. And that's what's causing the bad results. The commitment we showed against Chelsea without these players on the pitch, the ones causing the stink in the dressing room, was the first 90-minute performance where Leicester players committed from the off and they did not change how they went about it. Yeah, we still made mistakes. Yes, we're still frail on confidence. But the effort and commitment from what Leicester fans saw over that 90 minutes, if that's what you're going to come up against, and we've continued to try and improve on the mistakes, hopefully that was the foundation to look at to drive us forward and get this season off the ground. And hopefully we can use having a good record at this moment against you as a reason to, like you say, not fear you so much and go at you, even though you have looking like you settled under Ten Hag.
I think it's kind of a 50-50 one with this game, especially coming up, because I think when Man United come to town, Shaun, it's always, for most teams, they find that extra 10-20% in their game that they might usually have, because it's Man United who come to town. Like, we always know teams are always up for it when they play against us, because they know the whole world is watching when United come to town. But obviously, this game, you mentioned, we haven't won the last four in the league at the King Power, but consequently, as Brad mentioned, we are kind of settling under Ten Hag, and it seems like he has like more or less nearly a set 11 at this moment. Obviously, Casemiro may come into play this Thursday. You'd like to think with Arsenal coming up Sunday. When you look at, like, let's say the Southampton performance on the back of Liverpool, like, what impressed you about that 90 minutes, considering it was like our first clean sheet of the season?
Oh, there was a lot that impressed me. I'm not saying that the performance was perfect, because it wasn't by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a very impressive team performance. It's like you could see chemistry from the back line, and you could see a team performance in team play, team movements, team defense. Yes, we're lacking in certain areas up front, and I suppose maybe half of the saves that the Bazunu had to make more or less came in that passage where we had that 2 or 3 shots within a space of about 5 seconds from that set piece where we somehow didn't score. But it was the collective defensive unit and the collective. There was a clear plan, and there was an identity, and there was chemistry on the field. This is something that we've lacked for years and years and years. And I spoke with people after the game. You could just rewind 12 months and we will lose that game. There's no way we would have come away from Southampton with a win 12 months ago. But now, I'm not saying that Erik ten Hag has come in and in the space of a month, he's waved the magic wand and everything's perfect, because it's not. We're going to have ups, we're going to have downs. We're going to have games where we can go into them and maybe anticipate that we're going to win. And we're going to have games that we could go into them like Liverpool and be completely blown away at the fact that the intensity and the drive is there, because we can see passages of play. One of the, I suppose, the exciting things from the Southampton game in an attacking aspect was the clear passages of play and the third man run that we actually had for the goal, because we had fantastic movement from Elanga, freeing up Sancho, Dalot making that marauding move down the right-hand side. The ball is played out to him. We have third man runs. Dalot's able to cross it into the box. Bruno's free in the box. I know he made it look like a very simple tap-in, but it was anything but. But it was clearly trained. They practiced that movement and they practiced that type of finish in the training ground, and it shows that the manager is getting his will across. And then when you look at, I suppose, the other side of the field, you have Martinez looking imperious 2 games in a row. Obviously, look, we're not going to judge him on his overall worth after 4 games, but we have a partnership developing in Martinez and Varane, which looks very exciting. We have fullbacks that are defending and also contributing in attacking phases. It looks like a team cohesion. And even though we got into a position where for about 20-25 minutes it was pretty ropey, because it was near the end and we did have to defend and we did have to get a bit of structure, we did defend. And a lot of the opportunities that Southampton had and a lot of the shots were from long range. So we restricted them to that long range kind of attempts on goal, which ultimately was testament to how well we were structured and how well we were organized from the back.
Yeah, and I really like the organization, especially like Varane and Martinez being on the same wavelength. Varane took the man, Martinez is sweeping. If Martinez took the man, Varane was sweeping. And then, like you mentioned, Malacia and Dalot contributing in defense and attack. I think Malacia's timing for his tackles is exceptional. His positioning, his recovery runs as well are quite good as well. And he's an Aston Villa fan who listens to the podcast. He says here, Dalot's last 2 games have been his best United shirt by far. I probably agree with that. Well, maybe his first game against Young Boys still sticks in the mind of me when he first came in. That was a brilliant game he played, and I thought we were getting a reincarnation of Gary Neville that day.
What I'll say on that, what I'll add on that comment, it's something I was speaking about one of the guys earlier on. Dalot has never really had a period in his Manchester United career when he's sort of been the first choice right back. He's always been playing second fiddle, and he's always been sort of scraping for opportunities to get in. So now we're seeing him get a regular run in the first team, and these performances are coming as a result.
100%. And I think consistency is key with Dalot, because he hasn't, like him rightly mentioned, he hasn't had a run of games in the side. He's always been behind the Wan-Bissaka or Ashley Young before that as well, and Antonio Valencia. He hasn't had that kind of run of games where he can be that, right back to get to be that first choice player. And at the minute, since kind of Ralph Rangnick came in, he's been that kind of first choice right full where he is playing, a certain amount of games, and consequently, what we're starting to see now is he's getting more used to the Premier League. Because look, if we be honest, since he's been at the club, he's played a handful of Premier League games before Rangnick came in, and now he's getting acclimatized to it. He's getting used to the time and the physicality. And look, it's quite good in terms of, I know we were looking for a right back this summer. Now, look, I know there's talk about Destin. I've seen that today, but look, we'll see what happens with that one between now and Thursday. But if he's going to be our number one right back this season, then look, if he can keep putting on performances like that, then look, that's fantastic. Obviously, look, we've Wan-Bissaka still there at the club. Brandon Williams is actually still at the club as well. So we do have options at right back this season, but it looks like Dalot is Erik ten Hag's your number one option. So hopefully we can see a bit of consistency, because I'll be honest, at the start of the summer, when I seen Laird play them couple of games in pre-season, I seen obviously Laird playing the 23s. I'm sure we spoke about Laird before on Twitter before. I really rate him. I think he's a brilliant right back, and I thought maybe in this system he actually might do very well. Consequently, he's gone out on loan in the Championship this season. If Laird
scored tonight as well.
Scored tonight as well. Should look, I'm like Mystic Mac here. Honestly, I think he's a player next season. I know I'm looking ahead, but he's someone who I think can challenge Diogo Dalot if we don't go into the market for a right back. But consequently, the fact he's our right back right now, I think he's done very well in the last 2 games. And I have been a big critic of him, but if he can keep up performances like that, then I hate saying saving money, because I do not want this football club and the Glazers to ever save money. Ever. I never want them to save money. But if he can be that consistent right back, then we can maybe use that money to put it into midfield, because that's obviously somewhere where we know, Shaun, it is a massive point, Joe, I suppose. Problems still at the club. I know we've signed Casemiro, but there's still teething problems there. Brad, just from the outside looking in, obviously looking at United's start this season, and what have you made of Erik ten Hag since he's kind of come into the football club and the principles he's setting?
I mean, he's come with a bit of a reputation, and I think you look at the signings and the way he's slowly getting Man United to play the football, you can instantly tell he's come with expectation, which is probably helping that manager bounce and settle in well. Casemiro is a great signing to add to the club's strength and the conviction to be able to convince these players to join Manchester United, because you still are recovering from post-Fergie syndrome, and you're doing well. You're getting back up to them levels. A lot of people talking it's Man City and Liverpool ball to fight it out between themselves. So, in terms of trying to bridge that gap a bit quicker, I think he's done some very smart business. I know we're going to talk about him soon, but obviously the Anthony deal's a major one to get over. At least when a player you want and wants to join you, and the deal gets done quickly, instead of Chelsea, who decided at the last minute they want to send it to America for a medical with somebody. But there we go. At least your guys know how to get business done over the line. But yeah, he looks like he's getting things settled. I mean, the one bad sign, and it's the most embarrassing thing in football, is a silly song that someone came up for him. I'm sorry, that song needs to go. That you need to think of something better. You can't go from 1 to Hag 10 Hag. No.
To be fair, that I don't think that's going to be allowed to happen. Not at all.
No, I hope not. I hope not.
I know a lot of these match goers, and I can tell you now that's That's not gonna be allowed. That's not gonna be allowed. Our singing section, the Red Army will come up with a way better song than what that social media video.
I do hope so, because the way he's seemingly getting you going as a manager, he deserves a better song than that, to be honest with you. But yeah, again, it's early days. I mean, you're not going to shut, again, talk about patience in football. Some United fans might be, you mentioned it earlier, might be expecting that now you've had 2 good performances and got 2 wins on your belt, that suddenly the magic wand's been waved and all the past problems are suddenly gone. Yes, he's taken steps, as drastic as they may look, in terms of dropping Ronaldo, and thanks for that 80 million to drop him onto the bench, slabhead. But these things need to happen. But it's not going to cure things. I think Tottenham, and I think like Chelsea, and I think I think yourselves, you're still going to have the odd hiccup through the season, and you've just got to prepare for that. I just don't think the hiccups are going to be as bad as they were for the last season and the season before that. So far, so good in terms of finally getting it right, in terms of manager. But it is only the start of the season. If he's still doing well in 7 or 8 games, then I'm sure you're in for a very good season, it seems, with him at the helm.
Yeah, I do have a lot of positivity about him, because I like the fact he takes authority. He doesn't take any BS, and he's his own man. And I think one thing that I really loved was when we got beat 4-0 by Brentford. Though he made the extra 13k that Brentford made us run, that we didn't run, sorry, in that Brentford game. Ten Hag the next day made the team run this extra 13k, and Ten Hag done it with him as a manager. So what that shows to me is he made the players take responsibility for that performance with Ten Hag by doing that run with the players. He also took responsibility. I think that's why in the last 2 games you've seen it bounce, because I think that connection that was slowly but surely been made, and the players are buying into his ideas. And like Shaun said, we're seeing that cohesion in attacking phases and also on the defensive side. Again, obviously, with a player like Casemiro coming in, I'm hoping now we see that bit more cohesion, more organisation in midfield, and teams don't play through us as much as they did like last season. Shaun, I just want to bring up to you there as well, and under 23's gone 1-0 up there. Garnacho set up Charlie McNeil there, so United under 23's are winning there as well. So 2 of my lads there, McNeil and Garnacho, 2 very good players. I'd love to see them get a game in Europa League, but that's just me. But yeah, Shaun, obviously this game coming up this Thursday, it's a double header really, because we have Arsenal on the weekend. But looking into Thursday, we're looking for to make it 3 wins in the last 3 games. Now the fact we're going to be Thursday, Sunday now, between now and the World Cup, it looks like Ten Hag's going to have a lot of games and a lot of time to maybe look at these players and to obviously get his ideas across. When you look at obviously this game, these 2 big games, like away to King Power and at Old Trafford, Arsenal on Sunday, do you think Erik Ten Hag may look at Thursday and may try to bring in a couple of players to maybe keep the squad fresh, but also maybe have a look at some of these players who haven't got much game time over the season?
I would think you will see substantial change to the midfield for Thursday night's game. I think you'll probably see Casemiro and Fred come in place of McTominay and Eriksen. I think Eriksen will probably get a rest with view of Arsenal coming on Sunday, and his ability to be able to have that eye for a pass and his ability to control the centre of the field. Fred and Casemiro obviously have a very good relationship at international level, and I think that's going to pay dividends for us. Well, I hope it's going to pay dividends for us. But I certainly think against Leicester, I would be very surprised if you don't see Casemiro and Fred come into the starting lineup. Obviously, it's something that I'm very vocal about, that squads win titles. Starting 11 isn't going to win titles. Squads win titles. And especially when we're going between Thursday and Sunday, it is necessary to chop and change. I would not be overly keen on breaking up the partnership in defence at this moment in time. So I would maintain that that's probably going to stay the same. But I think that you'll see Casemiro. I think you will see Fred. And a lot will depend as well on just how bad the Achilles injury was for Martial. So it was kind of rumoured as if it was only a bit of a knock as opposed to something long-term. So unless I've missed something, he could possibly be available as well over the double header. So I think you'll get players coming in. I don't think you're going to see anything too drastic in the likes of Zidane or anybody coming in for these particular games. But when we start getting to European Thursday night football, I think the possibility of Zidane, possibly even Garnacho, will get some bit of an opportunity, might get 30 minutes, 45 minutes here and there, because ultimately we'll need to make the most of the squad that we have. And you'll see the likes of Harry Maguire coming back in, unless something dramatic happens on deadline day. And Leicester look to give us back some of the money when they get rid of Fofana. I don't know. But
I'll give you 12 pounds for him.
Do you know what? I tried to talk. I was there actually when I seen the Fofana Chelsea links the other day. I said I wanted to speak it into existence. I was talking to Steve, who was a Tottenham fan, I'd speak to on here. And I said, do you know what? It would be great. Leicester get the 70, 75 million for Fofana. They need a centre back very quick. Harry Maguire is available. You know, they don't give us back the full 80 million. They got the training ground out of our last transfer fee. You know, they'll take him back now and he can slot back into the team being an experienced player. But to be fair, it's not a bad shout considering Kasper Schmeichel is gone. And Harry Maguire would be a character in that dressing room if he did walk in there. And he did play very well at Leicester. That's why we bought him in the first place. Like, he was a top centre half at Leicester. So you never know. You never know, Brad. You might get him back this Thursday. You never know.
Maybe if it's only 20 million. Don't forget, we've still got one of your old boys who is our current captain in Johnny Evans doing that. So we have got the steady in there. I mean,
he is.
Yeah, he is. He gets a lot of criticism, and I don't think some people can wrap their head around that. When you get to like the wrong side of 30, with the greatest respect, as a footballer, you drop back and you're not as quick. People seem to moan at him for being deep and not being quick. But it's like, well, that's because he's 35, and if you had him playing 10 yards forward, he'd keep getting caught out, and teams would get him behind us even easier. Sometimes it winds me up football because some fans just don't see what he does. I mean, he's got 35 years old, and he's still making killer passes in our team. There's a reason he's not dropped out of the Premiership in God knows how long, if at all, to my knowledge. I don't think he ever has played at the lower league, has he? Unless it was for West Brom, and I think he left them before they were relegated, didn't he?
No, he stayed. I think he's always been in the Premier League. Because when West Brom got relegated, he went to Leicester, didn't he?
Yeah, because we snagged him on his release clause.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever left the Premier League. But to be fair, like Fergie obviously seen something in Johnny Evans. When he was at the club, like I remember in his last season, like Evans like would often play ahead of like Rio or Vidic, you know, or Jones and Smalling. Like especially in that season where we won our last title, Evans was a very good centre half in our team. And I think Louis van Gaal left him go probably too early, to be quite honest. He probably got rid of the wrong centre back, in my opinion, when he got rid of Evans at that time. I know Van Gaal didn't fancy him, but he's still a good centre back. And you're quite right, Brad. I think at 35 to still be playing at the level of centre back in the Premier League, I think that is remarkable. And look, obviously he's a former Red. We will obviously shout for him, not this Thursday, obviously, because we're playing against you. But obviously, being a former Red, we hope he does well every other week. Especially when he play Liverpool at some stage during the season. We love Johnny Evans to wind up Darwin Núñez. But yeah, look, it's interesting how both teams are going to line up. And Shaun, one thing you did mention as well is Varane and Martinez. Like, part of me thinks, I know I don't want to split that kind of centre-back partnership up either, but I kind of have a feeling the fact that Varane's injury record is what it is. Does he want to maintain him for Sunday? And does he bring back Maguire or maybe even bring in Lindelof on Thursday? Just because with the Thursday, Sunday and Varane's injury record, like the fact he's been playing so well, like do we need to maybe look after him, considering like we've a lot of games coming between now and the World Cup?
It's a possibility. I just have an inkling that barring injury, we'll see the same back four Thursday and Sunday. I have that inkling because whatever about sort of necessary and strategic rotation of squad members in terms of midfield and attacking options, I find when it comes to defensive back fours, stability is generally built through continuity and through continually playing alongside each other. And if you have cultivated something over 2 games, which the guys have started to do, and you want to really maximize it for the weekend, obviously not looking past Leicester by any stretch of the imagination, but looking towards Arsenal as well, you want to have everybody fit, firing, and on the same page. And they're just starting to develop that cohesion in defence. That's what I was making reference to about the Southampton game. You know, they're defending in solid motion. They're moving forward. They're moving backward in similar veins, and they're starting to learn each other's mannerisms. So I would be very surprised if the back four is changed, barring injury, between Thursday and Sunday. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, it is, and look, it is something that I wouldn't like to change. I think just that the amount of times Varane came in, played well, and got injured last season gives me PTSD. I look at it. I just look at it and like thinking every time he's in a bad challenger holding his knee, I'm sitting there and I'm like, no, don't be injured. Because anytime he went out with the team last season, we dropped points. We dropped a lot of points. When you look at the statistics, suggest anytime Varane was playing last season, we picked up a lot more points. So look, I'm hoping he can stay fit and consistent because him and Martinez are building up a good partnership. And I'm just loving the fact, like, if Martinez keeps playing the way he does, Graham Souness, Jamie Carragher, all these people who are badmouthing him in the media are all going to have to eat their words. Like 5'9", I've never heard about height being spoke about so much in my life. And like I was tall as a child, and I got slagged for my height when I was young. And I don't think I got slagged as much as what Lisandro Martinez is, in the media right now. So like I'm just looking at it and just hoping that he can keep this form up, and then the narrative will have to shift somewhere else. Because for whatever about his height, he's winning all his area duels, he's winning all his ground duels. His pass completion is brilliant as well, and his line breaking passes are exceptional. And so like this narrative that Lisandro Martinez can't play in the Premier League, I think is quite false, and I think it's going to be proven wrong very quickly. Because it is record Royax is absolutely exceptional as well. So hopefully you can keep that going. But what we're going to do now is we're going to, with regards to Thursday's game, we're going to give our starting 11 predictions. So Shaun briefly touched on who we'd like to come in midfield and the defense. So we're going to give all of our full 11s right now. But I'm going to come to you first, Brad, since you are the opposition. So I'm going to get you to give us your 1 to 11 for Thursday.
I don't think anything's going to change at the back, given the issues we've got with defence in terms of injuries, and obviously the whole debacle with Fofana and Brendan's obviously not going to play players that aren't 100% at the club in terms of their commitment, or there's an obvious stance on Soyuncu. So there's no way Vestergaard's playing. So for that reason, we're back four, because I'd stick with a back four because we're terrible with the back three. If we start with the back three, we might as well tell the referee to just start shaking hands and award United 3 points. So I'd go with a back four. Obviously, James Justin on the left, Evans on the left of the centre back, pairing with Amati on the right. Danny Ward obviously starting in goal. And we don't have Ricardo, so it have to be Castagne. Not that I'm bothered by that choice. I love Castagne. It's the only right back option we've got, so he naturally would go on the right. I'd like us to stick. We're never going to play the Mike Bassett as much as some Leicester fans go, but I think sometimes to get the best out of our squad and get the better quality players on, I want to play 4-3-3. So my midfield would be Ndidi and Dennis Pratt, and then I would go with James Maddison in that number 10 role. I know you already had a really good game against Chelsea, but again, thinking on Sunday, playing 2 week, it's a one-off experience for this season, unlike previous seasons. But I'd like to see more of Pratt, because if we got one eye on the future as well, we need to start giving Pratt more game time this season. If Yuri's not going to, if he's going to go on a free, we kind of have to try and get him more game time so he's not starting from scratch next season. And then obviously up front, I would go with Barnes on the left. Unless we get a winger in miraculously tonight, and I don't even think that would happen, we're going to have to go with Perez as the right winger. People aren't going to like this, and I'm going to get slated for it because he's clearly a club legend and a legend in the Premier League, in my opinion. But I'm not giving it to Jamie Vardy. He looked off the cuff against Chelsea. He missed 3 very good chances. Granted, the one he took around Mendy wasn't the easiest, but from what we've seen as Leicester fans from Jamie Vardy, he should have at least been put in one, if not two of them 3 chances away. People might say that he, confidence and got to let it go. The old term past is new. We need to get players on the pitch that are going to be our future. I know he signed a 2-year contract, but he is actually human, believe it or not. And I would go with Daka. So it'd be Barnes on the left, Daka in the middle, Perez on the right in the front three. So yeah, that'd be my.
You'll be looking with that front three. Are you thinking about kind of playing with kind of more pace and being a bit more direct, considering maybe Vardy's form hasn't been the greatest, and are you thinking like with Barnes and maybe Daka especially that maybe in behind you can try maybe exploit United? Is that your thinking?
Yeah, that's the thinking. You saw it against Chelsea when we had that slight period when it was just Nacho as the target man. We kind of lost our impetus in the edge, but when we still had the pace going forward, I mean, Daka's very much like for like in terms of he'll sit on the defensive line, he'll only come and collect the ball if he's able to spring an attack forward and pass it on, and he can go into the box. But essentially, he's been brought in to do the Jamie Vardy role in the future. And if you're going to play with one solo striker, you need someone with pace. Nacho has been transformed to like the false nine almost, where he'll come deep, pick up the ball, he'll turn and dribble with it, sort of pretty much playing between Vardy and where Madders would play on the pitch. And with United, I think you've got to try and keep their defence on their toes. And you've got someone like Daka doing that, who deserves a run in the team, and he takes his opportunity. I think we've got to go at yours with pace. I don't think we want to be playing Nacho as a lone striker because he plays it differently, and we do need to be going at pace and trying to cut the lines out and maybe kind of also force you back a bit, because if we let you get on top of us, it's going to be a very tough afternoon. Well, evening for Leicester.
Yes, in an evening time game under the lights, live on BT Sport as well. So do make sure you do tune into that game, guys. But yeah, it's interesting what you said there in terms of leaving Yuri Tielemans out. Well, if that's the case, I think me and Shaun will be kind of rubbing our hands together if Yuri Tielemans isn't playing against us, because we do, like, again, if we're talking about players who are creative, he's one of the best in the league. And like the fact that he's available for 25, 30 million this summer, I'm surprised no one's actually gone in for him this year. Considering the amount of teams who are in need of midfielders, especially yourselves, I'm shocked we haven't gone in for him ourselves. I know we've Casemiro, but I do think we are in the need of another one. In fact, Frankie de Jong didn't happen. I'm surprised we didn't go in, but let's hope our midfield options do come true, and they are handy for us this season. Shaun, you mentioned obviously that you'd start a midfield three of Casemiro, Fred, and Fernandes. So is it the same back four as Southampton? Joe, Dalot, Varane, Martinez, Malacia. What about your front three though? Obviously Martial is touching goal maybe Thursday. Obviously as well with Sunday in mind, do you have anything different to what we seen last Saturday against Southampton in your front three?
I think a lot of it depends on Martial's fitness. I fully expect something to happen with Ronaldo, that he's not going to be available. I can't see him staying, so I wouldn't factor him in. I think what you're going to see against Leicester is the same, obviously same in goals, same back four, and I think you're going to see Casemiro, Fred, Bruno up top. We're going to need, I think with Leicester as well, when you're touching on the likes of Johnny Evans and his age, and maybe why he's not able to push as far forward because of the potential of being caught out behind. Pace is obviously the big thing. But a lot of this is dependent on Martial. So let's just imagine Martial is fit. I suspect Martial to play maybe 50 minutes, 60 minutes against Leicester. And you have maybe Sancho and Rashford either side of him. Malenga might have a shout as well. But if I had to nail down a three, I'd say probably Martial, Rashford and Sancho.
Yeah, it is. I think what's very important with your front three there is, I think, pace, direct, and I think the interchange and runs will be important if you want to beat Leicester, like in terms of their back four, especially if they sit deep. I think that front three would be good. My team is a bit slightly different. I have to have De Gea in goal with Dalot. I've actually brought back in Harry Maguire and put him beside Martinez. I think I'm a paranoid wreck. I just don't want to see Varane get injured between now and Sunday. I think that's probably just me being like the extra paranoid. But though I think if there's never a game for Harry Maguire to come back into the team, regain confidence, and grab the bull by the horns at your former club at Leicester, that would be a game for him to come back. I know historically last season he didn't play well at the King Power. I know he came back from injury in that game. But look, there's no better way to redeem yourself to actually, go back to your former club, play well, and hopefully regain a bit of form. Because if what Ten Hag talked about the other day in his presser, or was it? I think could have been the post-match presser, is he wants to be more rotational with his defenders. He actually said that's his kind of policy this season with the centre halves. So if that's the case, I wouldn't like to change too much in there. Maybe it's bringing Harry just to kind of keep Varane on ice for Sunday. Because against Arsenal's front three, we are going to need Raphael Varane on song and ready to go from the first whistle. Again, Malacia at left back, I think that speaks for itself in his last 2 games. My midfield 3 is the exact same as yours, Sean. I'm going to go Casemiro, Fred, Bruno, keep Eriksen on ice for Sunday as well, especially with Arsenal, their few midfield injuries. I think there's no better probably time to play Arsenal considering their start and the couple of injuries they have. I think we could maybe get at them Sunday, but we will speak about that further on Friday on the pod as well. Front 3, Anthony's obviously not available due to visa yet. Will be available Sunday, but not today. Well, not Thursday. So I'm gonna go. Yeah, if Martial's not fit again, if he's not 100%, I probably wouldn't start him Sunday either. I'll go Elanga, Rashford, and Sancho as well. I'll go with that front 3. I think you're right in terms of the pace and Leicester's vulnerability. I think Anthony Elanga can actually be a weapon for us on Thursday with direct runs and the fact he just doesn't stop. I know sometimes what he might lack in the end product, you can't fault his work rate. And I think in games like this, he can really thrive and he can be dangerous. I think we see, like, if we're on talk about defensive setups, we've seen in that Atletico Madrid game away from home last season in Champions League. He came on, he was dangerous and he is direct. I think he can have that similar type of impact in this type of game against Leicester as well. And I would go that front 3. I wouldn't be surprised if we did see Donny van de Beek maybe get a game in the second half, because previously he has played well against Leicester. And if you want to talk about maybe something different in midfield, his kind of ability to retain possession and spray passes, maybe something different against Leicester. But again, it's something maybe I would do in the second half, but the man never plays games ever. He's the biggest social media myth, I think, I've ever seen in my life. I think Twitter explodes every time he doesn't start a game. But now Ten Hag is the manager, so who are they going to blame now? Hopefully I'm not to blame, because apparently I'm getting the blame for Steven Gerrard's hate at the moment, so I'm going to leave that one there. But yeah, that's my starting 11. So before we get the score predictions off the lads, I'm just going to ask both the lads a question in terms of the opposition clubs. So what this question will be is, if you could take one player from each, let's say, their proper starting 11 from the squad to improve their squad, who would it be? So I'm going to go to you first, Sean. From the Leicester team, if you look at Leicester's strongest 11, who would you pick out at 11 to come in and improve Manchester United?
Wilfred Ndidi.
In the whole of midfield position, yeah?
Yeah.
Wilfred Ndidi. And for you, Brad, if you had to look at Man United, Sean has said Wilfred Ndidi. So in that case, obviously, he's going looking for a destroyer coming into Man United's midfield. Who from Man United's current strongest 11 at this moment in time would you bring into the Leicester team to improve your situation at the moment?
Jadon Sancho is a right winger. I don't rate Perez. Look, I love the fact that he tries. I've got to give credit where it's due. He's really been trying. He's been given the chance because of our transfer issues. He's had to play on that right wing, and I can appreciate that. He's not top 6 quality though, which is what Leicester are being considered, and we don't want to lose that consideration that we're slowly becoming a side battling out for like the top 6 sort of thing. We want to keep that going. You can keep your hands and mitts off Wilfred Ndidi and keep them thoughts away. Wilfred Ndidi playing for you firmly in your head, please, for the love of God. But no, right wing's our really biggest weakness. I know people will say losing for Fana, obviously a centre back option. But honestly, I agree with you with Varane. Obviously, he's world class. And I'm thinking logically long term, where we need it, we have not found a replacement for Mahrez since then. And I know people are going to say you're never going to get as close to that for what he can do on a pitch. But in terms of from the opposition, if I'm picking from Manchester United, a few years ago it would have been Rashford, and now it's Sancho, because we desperately need to strengthen that right wing area.
Do you know what, Shaun? I think he mentioned the right wing. I think finally now we have a right winger in Anthony who's just come to the club. And he mentioned Riyad Mahrez being a left-footed right winger who was very creative and very tenacious. Before obviously you get that score prediction there from you, Shaun, what's your thoughts on finally getting Anthony over the line, and what qualities do you think he's going to bring to this football club?
Oh, I'm delighted that we've got him. I really, really am. I think first and foremost, he has that sort of that flair and that technical ability that he can have Old Trafford bouncing. You know, that's what the theatre of dreams is all about. It's about players going out and expressing themselves, electrifying the wings, you know, pulling off these moments of magic that has people oohing and ahhing and cooing all around the stadium. And I think he has that in abundance. In terms of what he's going to bring to the club, I've spoken about this for several weeks now. With the trickery that he has, and with the will, the want, and the desire to get the ball and to beat every single man that stands in front of him, he gives the opposition manager such a headache because they have to constantly think about doubling up on him. You can't leave him one-on-one with a defender because that's literally his pedigree. He wants to be one-on-one with a defender because he wants to take them on and he wants to cut inside. So the fact that he has that trait about him, opposition manager has to come in, double up on him, which inevitably is going to leave space. And when you have space, you can then have the third man runs into the pitch and you can see just an abundance of that type of goal that we scored against Southampton, where we have all these acres of space that are being created because people are having to double up on players. And that's what he brings. But he's also very, very understated in terms of what he brings in a defensive aspect. You know, he's very, very good at tracking up and down the field. And I suppose from the one thing that we've really noted from Ajax, he's cultivated a very good relationship with the right backs. So given the fact that Dalot has progressed on in his game, I'm not saying he's perfect, but the fact that he's progressed on in his game and he's liking those inverted runs. You know, he does like to run, but he's been operating very much in an inverted status recently. I think it's going to offer a lot of interchange out in the right. And yeah, I think it's a tremendous signing. It's funny because I thought when you made mention to Mahrez, I thought about Anthony because it's that same type of player. Same. He wants to cut in on the left. He wants to cut in on the left foot. He wants to just ping it into the bottom corner, the top corner. And yeah, I love it. I'm really, really excited to see him. Really, really excited.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see him. I think, look, I'm going to be honest. I haven't watched much of Eredivisie football. I'm going to be like brutally honest about it. I've seen him in the Champions League. For Ajax, brilliant in the Champions League, and I've seen kind of the shithousery side to his game as well, in terms of like getting in players' faces as well. Like I like that, the fact we've a couple of them players now. We've Martinez, we've Bruno, you know, we've Casemiro, we've like I know I've seen Brian mention on Twitter, and we have all them types of characters in our team now, so that not only have that bit of quality, but also wind up the opposition as well. I think Man United haven't had that in quite some time. I think that's something you need in your team as well. Like you can have all the quality in the world, but you need character as well. And I think he will come in and he will be a good player. And not only that as well, like he gives us options like tactically, like to rotate. Whereas Anthony on the right, and then maybe like 1 week, do you maybe want Jadon to play there, or like in terms on the left hand side, do you want Jadon to play there, or do you want Rashford to play there to give you pace and power and to make them third man runs, as you said? Like I think a player like Anthony linking up with a Christian Eriksen, it could be a dream. It really could be a dream to see. And look, hopefully it's something that I know. Look, it's 100 million transfer. I think it's going to take him time to settle as well. I think people do need to be patient with him, because like, look, he's coming from a different league. The Premier League is the best league in the world. It's the fastest league in the world, and there's no easy game in the Premier League. And like, you know, a player of his quality, I've no doubt, will like take it to a duck to water. But I think, look, the fact that we're Manchester United, we're not the finished article he's coming into. Like if he was coming into a Man City team, I think he'd settle like literally straight away. But in a Manchester United team that's still finding its feet, still finding its still I suppose, system still finding its way of playing. It is going to take time for him, but I think adding a player like him can actually make this system develop that bit quicker. So maybe it could be something that could be, intertwined. The system getting better, but also adding that kind of spark in Anthony into that system. But on that, we are going to get our score predictions. We are going to wrap up the podcast there. So, Brad, I'm going to go with the opposition first in terms of your predictions for Thursday's game. How do you think it's going? What do you think it's going to finish?
Oh, if the last 3 or 4 games between Man U and Leicester are anything to go by, there's going to be goals. We've had 2-2s, we've had 4-2s. So you'd assume, not to curse it, which I probably have just done now, but there'd be goals. There's a different prediction going on in my head. Logic dictates. But when I do these sort of shows and then a host or always ask me, what's your score prediction for your team playing so and so? I go with my head and maybe I should, because that's saying nick a point, 2-2 sort of thing. But I can't ever go against my team, and I can't do it at the King Power as well. I think if we can get up for this game and show the grit and determination that we did against Chelsea, and cut out the mistakes that we made in that game, playing that way, I think it'll be another high-scoring game, and I'm just going to give Leicester boys the edge, 3-2.
3-2. Oh, I'll be on strings. I'll actually be on strings.
It's the Leicester way, mate. It's the roller coaster.
Yeah. Oh, do you know what? If I'm at the stadium or watching the game, and it's something like that, like my blood pressure just goes up, and up. And if it's one of them type of games, I'll be sitting there and be like, Jesus Christ, I'd be absolutely breaking it. But look, that we would be in for an entertaining one if that was the score that did come either way, obviously on either side. Shaun, do you feel the same way on the United side? Do you think it's going to be an entertaining game? Do you see a lot of goals in this game?
I do think it's going to be an entertaining game, yeah, because a factor that you touched on earlier, when United come to town, it's the majority of teams. That's their game. That's when the stadium rocks the most, and that's when supporters get behind the team and act like that 12th man. So Leicester, they've been dismal. Results have been dismal, even though there's maybe a slight upturn in terms of what the fans are seeing on the field. I think when United come to town for a game like this, form almost goes out the window. So Leicester are going to start really fast. They're going to come out of the blocks and they're going to be going 90 miles an hour from the start. I fully expect that. However, I also expect a midfield that has Casemiro and Fred, which is going to have bite and an ability to be able to win the ball back, and we're going to have men on the break. I'll give Leicester a goal, not because I don't think we can keep a clean sheet, because I'm more confident now than we can keep a clean sheet. But given the fact that Leicester's season has to start somewhere, and it will start somewhere, and I think that they're going to come out fast, I'll say 3-1 United.
3-1 United. I'm also going 3-1 United as well. I think many years we've gone to the King Power, and I haven't been that confident, but I'd always back the team. I remember like in the lockdown season when Jesse Lingard, when Lingard scored at kind of the last kick of the game, I was thinking that they'd draw written all over it. And last season I didn't think we'd win, but obviously again I never would say that publicly. But it's I think this in the last kind of 3 or 4 seasons, I think this game is probably the most confident I've been going to the King Power, just because of Leicester's form. Now again, that could literally be clipped up and come back to bite me till Thursday night at around 10 o'clock roughly. But I'm going to go 3-1. And for me, I think it'd be, if you look at the goal scorers, I think Fernandes may get back on the score sheet again. I think he has the grip between the teeth now. He's wanting to get back into form, and I will go Sancho and Rashford as well to get on the score sheet as well. And we have a couple of predictions in here from the people in the comments. They're flooding comments in. Reese is here. Let's get his score prediction up here now. First of all, he says he agrees with Shaun absolutely on Anthony. And also he says, Reese on Anthony, he says, I genuinely think Anthony was settled to the Premier League as quick as Ruud van Nistelrooy did. Interesting. Reese has gone 2-1 Leicester. Rodgers to get sacked. We never know. that could potentially happen. Richard says 2-1 or 3. That's like 2-0 or 3-1 United. And he agrees with the prediction as well. And yeah, Reese also says we have the first and second choice Brazilian midfield is United's, with Fred and Casemiro in there. I didn't think of it that way. And Richard also says Bruno definitely scoring on Thursday night. Well, hopefully it's in the right net, because they're the other week and they scored one of the greatest own goals of all time. So hopefully it's in the right net this week. But we do have all our predictions in there. So both me and Shaun have gone with 3-1, and Brad has gone with Leicester winning 3-2. So all of us have gone with a load of goals, which suggests it's going to be a drab 0-0 on Thursday. That's what's happening.
Yeah, you can do it now. About 2 shots, nothing to talk about, and it's 0-0.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be the worst game probably Thursday night. But on that note, guys, we will wrap that up there. Thanks very much, everyone, for listening live, and anyone who has listened in on the replay. And this will be available on audio as well. This will be the first audio podcast that we will be uploading as well. So this will be available on Spotify, Apple, and all your other digital platforms on the audio side. And don't forget, in the video link description, link for Stretty News and Stretty Cast will be below. So on Shaun's side, on the Man United side, do check that out. And also the link for Leicester Till I Die podcast, where Brad and Chris, the lads, talk on there as well. And they all talk about things Leicester City there. So do check that out. That will be in the video link description later on. And also don't forget, obviously, to check us out on Friday. I will be joined by Phil Brown. On Friday, we will be talking all about the United and Arsenal game coming up. And also William will be on there as well. So do check that out. But thanks very much, everyone, for listening this evening. Hope you all have a great evening. And look, respect for Leicester. Let's hope Manchester United do get the 3 points, and it is a good game on Thursday night. But until then, guys, thanks very much and enjoy the rest of your evening.